Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out over at patreon.com/Packer fan total access. Follow me on X at Packers_access. Wherever you get your podcasts, just search Packers Total Access. We get the financial report has pretty much been released for the Green Bay Packers. We're going to comb through all the information on the Packers losing money, right? You see the bottom line here a little bit and you go, whoa. You know, are we in bad shape? You see Mike Florio's video, obviously an avid Viking fan, making the pitch to Packer fans a couple of days ago. Hey, this is why you need an owner. You need to, you just think about how great everything could be if you weren't publicly owned and that useless stock paper you have. It's just hilarious seeing other fan bases. I've never seen anything in the world of sports that bothered other fan bases more than the fact that the Packers fans are stock owners of their team. It's hilarious to see how some of these other fan bases react to that. But we're going to dive into all the numbers. We're going to give you the entire breakdown and talk about why I don't think it's a reason to panic. And really, you made two huge investments that were arguably the most important pieces you could have on your football team. So we're going to dive into that and more. If y'all would do me that YouTube stuff, hit like, hit subscribe, click the bell icon. If this is your first time tuning into PTA, welcome. Thank you for making us a part of your day. We are not experts, insiders, or media members. We're fans just like you talking Packers on a daily basis. So if you're looking for that type of content, hit subscribe, click the bell icon so you catch all of our content as we head into training camp. Busy week next week. We're going to be bringing you live coverage, training camp, giving you, every drop pass, every errant throw, every dime thrown by Jordan Love, every kick made or missed by Trace Mack. We're going to be overreacting to all of it. So it's officially training camp season. If you want to be a part of it, make sure you hit subscribe, click the bell icon. Let's dive into this information with the Packers financial report. And I see some people freaking out. Others are just saying, it ain't no big deal at all. Let's dive into what it all means. Are the Packers losing money? That's the big question here, right? So the headlines. Packers reported $132.5 million in net income for the fiscal year, a nearly 55% increase over the prior year. But the story behind the number is more complicated than it looks. You see that 55% increase. We're not losing money. We're printing it. You kidding me, baby? The organization also reported $133.6 million in non-operating income, driven primarily by investment gains and the NFL's sale of NFL Network to ESPN. You remember that big story that broke, right? The NFL was selling the NFL Network to ESPN. Well, the Packers got a good little chunk of that, right? So they reported $133.6 million in non-operating income that was primarily from that the investments gained from the NFL sale of NFL Network to ESPN. Now, underneath that, the Packers actually posted a $1.1 million operating loss. What? Hold up. We just increased the net income of 55%, but we lost $1 million. How does that make sense, right? It's an unusual result driven by a unique set of one-time financial circumstances rather than any fundamental weakness in the business. Now, why the operating loss happened? Player costs surged by $131.7 million in a single year. The result of new contract structures, accelerated cap charges on release players, and the accounting treatment of traded players, all landing on the books in the same fiscal year. You know, when we traded Rashawn Gary, there was dead cap attached. When that money accelerates to the current year and is due. In terms of the dead cap. Same thing when you traded Kenny. All these things kind of pile up and come into play. Right now, the Parsons trade is the clearest example. The blockbuster deal sent 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark to Dallas with significant financial consequences that hit the ledger simultaneously with other player movement. The 2025 home schedule also included only 8 regular season games, down from 9 in 2024, which created a headwind for local revenue. Now, why do we mention? Let's go back to the Parsons trade again. You can look at the other thing with the Parsons deal, right? All the money you have to pay up front. Same thing with Jordan Love. Anybody who says this team isn't all in, they're kidding themselves. the amount of finances, the amount of money, of guaranteed money that they put in to the quarterback position in Jordan Love and edge defender in Micah Parsons is astronomical. It's literally, it's why you always hear me say, if you want to know where people's response, where their priorities lie, look at their checkbook, right? What are they spending their money on? This is why we talk about quarterback and edge defender being tier one positions of importance all across the league. This isn't just isolated to the Green Bay Packers. So when you look at where these NFL teams spend their money, the bulk of their money, it shows you where the priorities lie and how important these positions are. So the question is Jordan Love that dude? He is a franchise quarterback. I have no question about it. Is he the best quarterback in the league? No, he's not. Is he top 3? I think at his best, absolutely. Is he top 5? Most of the time, he is top 5. Can he drift out of the top 10? Yes. But the reality is you have to have a top 10 quarterback to truly compete in the league, in my opinion, on a consistent basis. You might catch lightning in a bottle like teams have in the past, but you want a top 10 quarterback. Check it off the list. That's the cost of doing business, right? It costs money to have great players, no doubt about it. Now, Micah Parsons, would I do that again, that trade and that investment? Abso-freaking-lutely I would, because he's an elite, generational type talent, first ballot Hall of Famer at a tier 1 position of importance. Invest that money there. Where I have a problem is when you invest money into cornerback, when you invest money into wide receiver. Look at the franchises that do that on a consistent basis, and they're always in the bottom half of the league and never winning championships. Think of the Bengals, right? The Bengals have been, oh my God, Joe Burrow and that wide receiver core have been poised for so long to do so many great things. Well, what happened? You spent a ton of money on 2 wide receivers, and it hasn't gotten you a thing. So with all that being said, coming back to the article here, let's look at the revenue picture and how it's still strong. The national revenue grew by 4.8% to a record $453.2 million, a $20.6 million increase driven by the continued growth of the NFL's media partnerships. Local revenue, which covers ticketing, sponsorships, retail, and events, still rose $13.4 million despite the one fewer home game. So you still increased money there, even though you had that one fewer game. And then Policy's bottom line assessment, quote, the NFL is more competitive and more expensive than ever. We want to ensure our football leadership has every tool in the toolbox to build a competitive roster, and we do. And this is, we've heard people talk about the little slush fund, right? The savings account they got. We're going to get into that in a second. This is why you have that. So when the opportunity arises that you can go, okay, we can go invest in this great player at this important position, you've got the money to handle that, and it's not going to set your franchise back, right? The NFL Network sale, of course, like we mentioned, a significant portion of the non-operating income came from the NFL strategic transaction with Disney, in which the league sold NFL Network and certain media assets to ESPN in exchange for an equity stake in ESPN that was distributed equally among all 32 clubs. So now look at what's been in the headline here lately, the news, right? All the ESPN layoffs. It's all Pat McAfee's fault, right? Blah, blah. No, they spent a ton of money, right? Buying the NFL Network, essentially. And there's adjustments that have to take place. And to be honest with you, you look up at the people that they let go. Do you think it's a coincidence that they let Ryan Clark go? And if you comb through X, you're going to find 90% of the tweets about Ryan Clark where people can't stand him. They hate his opinions. They think he's baiting. They think he's self-indulged. They think he knows more than he does. All these things that pile up. It's just amazing how the few people that are screaming he got screwed over, it's like, if you were to take a poll question of your viewers and say, do you think he deserves the pay he's got? Do you think he should be on the network or not? I have a hard time believing it'd be less than 80%, right? That would say, no, yeah, I think he's doing a good job. Like, I mean, you're going to see 80, 85, maybe even 90% of the viewers that say, no, he's not a good asset for this. So the ESPN had to adjust with the purchase of NFL Network, no doubt. Now, the corporate reserve fund, the Packers corporate reserve fund now stands at, listen to this number, guys. So they've got a corporate reserve fund. This is the slush fund we talk about. It is now at $701 million. It's up $77 million from a year ago, driven by investment gains and new contributions. While that number is substantial, policy acknowledged it took more than 30 years to build, and other NFL clubs can now raise a comparable amount in a matter of months through private equity. So private equity problem, right? That's starting to come into play with sports. As the league's only publicly owned franchise, the Packers have no access to private equity capital or limited partner investment, a structural disadvantage that is becoming more consequential as the rest of the league taps that money. Policy put it bluntly, quote, "It's like other teams have an ATM and we don't have," end of quote. Other franchises also benefit from significant public investment in new or redeveloped stadiums, which frees up additional money for non-capped football operations, another area where Green Bay faces a structural gap. So you could see where you look at the slush fund, $701 million. We're up $77 million. I know we showed a loss of $1 million after paying the players and whatnot. When you look at everything as a whole, you go, okay, we're in a good standing. But as you forward project, and listen, that's business, guys. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. There's no staying the same. I love the fact that Ed Policy's got his eyes on the future going, hey, these other teams have these untapped resources, they uncapped resources, if you will. Something that we don't have because we're publicly owned, right? So now the Lambeau Field question. Lambeau Field will soon be the oldest stadium in the NFL and will require sustained investment for both maintenance and future upgrades to remain competitive as a facility. Policy said a long-term plan involving the city, county, state, and stadium district board is critical. Quote, "It's critical to have a long-term plan in conjunction with the city, county, state, and stadium district board to keep Lambeau Field both iconic and state-of-the-art," end of quote. Certainty around the lease with the city and stadium district is needed, along with a collaborative approach with county and state partners for any future capital plans. Now, I want to guard my words very, very, very closely here. It seems like there is a portion of people, I think there are a very, very small portion of people that aren't Packer fans, so to speak, in the Green Bay area that seem to think the Packers are screwing over the city of Green Bay. I like to keep my hat out of that ring because I'm not a Green Bay resident. I try to travel up there once or twice a year. I love the people. I love everything about the area. We've looked at property up there. We came really, really close to pulling the trigger last year on a piece of property so we could just live right there in Green Bay, have a studio, and work the pod from there, during football season, of course, and just be down here different seasons. So I don't want to paint this picture that the city of Green Bay is greedy or they're evil or the Packers are innocent or what have you. But I kind of, from the outside looking in, this is a dumb redneck perspective here, okay? Just a Packer fan from a distance. I look at what Green Bay, the Packers mean to the city of Green Bay and what the city of Green Bay means to the Packers. They go hand in hand, don't get me wrong. But if it weren't for the Packers, what would the city of Green Bay be known for? What would be their strength? You've got the Bay, you've got the commercial assets that come with that in a sense of using the lake and whatnot, right? And being able to transport things and all these things that come into play. Just from a business, I'm trying to look at it from a business owner standpoint. Am I wrong in the chat, guys? Am I wrong thinking the Packers are more important to Green Bay than Green Bay is more important to the Packers? I know they go hand in hand. And I don't want to cause an argument. I don't want people bickering in the chat or what have you. From the outside looking in, and again, it's probably an ignorant standpoint. I look at this and I go, the only reason that Green Bay is really known across the country and across the world is because that's where the Green Bay Packers play. Am I wrong? Is that unfair? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat what you guys think about that. Again, I'm not trying to create division. I'm kind of thinking about this, like I said, from a distance. I don't want to come from any sense of authority or a local or anything like that. But it always bothers me when people go, "Oh, the Packers are screwing over the city of Green Bay." And I'm like, do you want them to compete with the rest of the league? I think if you're a fan, you say yes. Now, on the record, I've heard several people who remain nameless that are pretty prominent. They seem to think, no, well, that's not most important. What's most important is what the Packers can do for the city of Green Bay. That's not how businesses operate. Businesses, people don't go and say, hey, I'm going to take 50% of my career earnings, 50% of my retirement. I'm going to invest into a business model to make this city better. There's nobody that's doing that. You don't, I guarantee you the same people that complain about that stuff they're not waking up in the morning going, I don't really care about my bottom line and how I can provide for my family and pay my bills and have a little bit of a life that I enjoy. The most important thing to me is how can I make my employers more money? How can I make their business, their dreams come true? And I'll just put mine on the back burner. Like that's just not how business operates. And that's why, like, a comment in the chat earlier, and I don't want to call him out by name. Made a comment about, well, this is just a reason to raise hot dog prices. I can see how you'd have that opinion, but here's the beautiful thing about America. You don't have to buy that hot dog. You can, like Jen said in the chat, you could tailgate, you can bring your own food. You can eat before you go to the game, right? Me personally, I'm buying that hot dog. I want the experience, right? And that's why they have it. And that's why the prices are so high, because people are still willing to purchase those things. I'm one of those knuckleheads. There was a time in my life I couldn't afford to do that. Right. And that's where you got to, like Pat McAfee says, you got to be who you can afford to be. Right. But at the same time, this idea that everything is just evil and the Packers are just trying to use everybody. You're seeing now with, especially like we said, with some of this private equity stuff that's starting to creep into sports a little bit more, how they've got to be a little more cautious. They got to truly focus on that bottom line. And that's why when the city of Green Bay tries to play hardball as if the people that are in charge now of the city of Green Bay, they act like they were the reason that the Packers are successful. No, you aren't. Just like the people running the Packers right now aren't. This stuff predates us all. You're talking about all the way back to 1919. You're talking about, if you want to include the old business owners back in what it was, the 20s when they had the first stock drive, or maybe it was the 30s, whenever it was, those are the people that made it happen. Stop pretending like because you got elected to be mayor or whatever damn political position you got where you're paid on a daily basis to lie to people that you're the reason the Packers, that by George, they need to pay up because we're the reason they're successful. That's just it bothers me. It really, really does bother me. You could probably tell that. But with that being said, it goes on to say, so we hit on that. Titletown and community impact, right? So the Packers-led Titletown development has involved a total investment of roughly $300 million across all parties and welcomed nearly 1 million visitors over the past year. You know what I think of as I read that line right there? Bob freaking Harlan. Thank sweet baby Jesus every morning when you wake up that Bob Harlan was a human being here that just continued to do everything in the best interest of the Green Bay Packers football organization. And what do I mean by that? He had the vision when they realized we're about to go belly up, and this was back in the late 90s, I think, is when they really came to the realization. Over the course of the Packers' existence, it's continued to happen, obviously, because you're a small market team with no owner with the endless pocket. But he realized we got to do something, guys. This is not sustainable, right? So he came up with the atrium was the first big project, right? That's when I became a Packer fan. That's when I discovered pro football at a different level. It was like, what is this Green Bay Packers saying? I was a big college football fan. I got to go up there and see this. Everybody's talking about it. Went up there, met the people of Green Bay, fell in love with the whole community. It was like, this is unbelievable what they've got up here. But the atrium was just built, right? That atrium put some shops inside it, put the Packers Pro Shop in there. They moved the Packer Hall of Fame in there, and they turn it into a year-round business. Why? To generate revenue. Every time that I go in there and buy that hot dog, every time I go up to the 1919 Kitchen and Tap that was previously known as Curly's Pub, I would go in there and maybe overpay a little bit for a bowl of beer cheese soup and some cheese curds and an ice-cold bruschetta. When I go in there and do that, you know what was going through my mind? This is helping my favorite football team exist. That's why I would rather buy a jersey from the pro shop than buy a knockoff from somewhere else. Now, if you're someone who does that, do your thing. I ain't judging you. I'm just telling you why I spend my money the way I spend my money. If I see something that I like from a sense of apparel or whatever, right? I try to go to the Packers Pro Shop and shop directly through the Packers online so they get I don't care what percentage it is extra. I want to make sure that the majority of my money is going to the football team. And that's what bothers me about people that are not fans but knock fans for the stock drive. It's just silly. They're taking advantage of you and this and that. No, this shows you exactly how shaky things can get. Just like Bob Harlan had to make the tough decision of, hey, we've got to invest money. We've got to go out and ask the city of the people of Green Bay to help us build this atrium so we can generate more revenue. Just like you're having to do that, now Ed Policy is faced with this whole idea of, all right, now we got to take into consideration private equity and how this is going to play a role in professional sports and how we can stay ahead of the curve. I think Ed Policy is going to do a phenomenal job. But the franchise's overall community charitable impact reached $15 million in the past year, up from $13 million to the year before. I don't know the numbers on the whole stadium disagreement with the city of Green Bay and when the mayor of Green Bay went on his little, tour and tried to kind of badmouth the Packers a little bit, which, by the way, if you watch shows, if you support podcasts that prop up somebody like that, that's tearing down your team, I don't relate to you. Just don't. Now, politics, which I keep off of this channel and I will always continue to keep off this channel, play a role in that. This is give us a little chance to get a little jab in there, right? You'll see certain websites do that. You'll see certain media members do that, right? Because they cannot go without mentioning politics for 2 seconds. It's the weirdest thing. I look at people like that, they're weirdos. They're weirdos if they try to inject politics into every aspect of their life, as if they've convinced themselves that no matter which party it is, they truly care about my family and my well-being. It's just silly. They're playing everybody like puppets. I digress. With that being said, you notice how the mayor doesn't mention the $15 million in the past year, which was up $2 million. And the number I kept hearing of something about a lease was like $1 million lease for Lambeau because the city actually owns it, even though the Packers pay to keep everything up and running. And they were kind of complaining about the money or lack thereof they were going to get for Lambeau Field, for the Packers using Lambeau Field. It's remarkable to me that number didn't get mentioned. So I think it's hilarious. If that number was 1 million, we doubled that number in extra charitable, impact. I say we as if I did anything. I didn't do anything. I watched the games and talked about it, right, and had a good time doing it. But the overall community charitable impact reaching that $15 million, you kind of doubled that amount that they were bickering over in terms of leasing out the stadium. So this is what I mean. If the Packers disappeared, let's just get cut straight to the chase. If the Packers left Green Bay, Wisconsin, they would immediately be out of $15 million next year that went to charitable organizations across the community. But certain people, a very small number, are going to stand there as if the Packers owe them something. I don't know, man. That kind of eats at me. And maybe that is the business owner in me, right? I grew up, we were pretty far under the tracks. We grew up on welfare. I remember the government cheese. I remember the paper food stamps. I remember all that, right? Like it was yesterday. And I got to a certain point in my life where I was like, you know what? Maybe I just need to go out here and hustle a little bit. Maybe let's try that. I looked around the people in my life and like, nobody's really hustling, The people that I associated with, it was just kind of, hey, this is just life. This is the way it is, right? So then when you get out there and you get a taste of, oh, wait, there's no cap on how much money I can make. That really triggered something in me as a young person. About the age of 18, I guess I was about 19 when I had the privilege of working under two awesome business owners in Knoxville, Tennessee. I moved down there out of high school. As soon as I realized I wasn't getting a full scholarship for ball, it was going to be a 50-50 split of the scholarship. Like my family can't afford that. I'm not going in debt to go to college. That's just me personally. I go to Knoxville, worked at the Postal Service for about 6 months, looked up, met a business owner there. He and his business partner asked me to help them run their business or work for them and then eventually help run it. It was the best training I ever got in my life because I got to see, whoa, these guys are both high school educated too. And look at what they've accomplished. Yeah, you can have anything you want in life if you're willing to work your ass off, right? So I say all that because that's the mindset that I come from, is building stuff, building pockets of business. You guys know if you watch the channel, that's what I do. That's what I do for a living. With all that being said, it just bothers me that the Packers, every now and again, there's a certain select group that kind of give them a little nudge, give them a little prod, a little poke, as if they're selfish and they're evil. And it's $15 million in the past year. I think that's phenomenal. Policy framed the broader mission. The Packers, including Lambeau Field and Titletown, are a critical cultural, social and economic driver for our city, region, and state. Notice he said our. He didn't say the city of Green Bay. He says our city of Green Bay. I think he's the right guy for the job. I like the way he's handled everything up to this point. So, with that being said, that's the local on the financial. So I want to ask you guys, if you're watching this video back later, let me know in the comments, how do you feel about the financial situation here in Green Bay? How do you feel about that $1 million loss, even though we've got the slush fund now up to, what was it again, $701 million? How do y'all feel about the entirety of that whole conversation? Hit me up in the comments, hit that like button, hit subscribe, click the bell icon, and that way you catch all of our training camp coverage that starts next week. It's going to be an absolute blast in here talking ball with y'all as the season is upon us. We appreciate y'all. All right, I'm going to go to the chat, see if y'all are burning me to the ground. I got a little bit animated there. I'm probably getting raked over the coals in here, and that's okay. We can agree to disagree if that's the case. So let's see what else we got here. Fishy things, lead it off. Politics, throw up emoji. Amen to that, man. Golly, it's just it's so frustrating. Let's don't get into it. Fishy. I shouldn't have brung it up, right? But yeah, I'm with you. We're on the same page there. Jen Wright, the amount of development in Green Bay is all Packer related. That's the thing, right? Like, and they'll use local businesses to help run the game day aspect as well, right? I mean, think about another thing I heard, like for the draft coverage, I was there on boots on the ground for the draft in Green Bay. It was absolutely phenomenal. Us and the guy, it was me and Tim and Emilio, and we had the ladies up there, and it was an absolute blast. Got to meet a lot of you guys. I appreciate everybody coming up and introducing themselves and whatnot. But all the food trucks and all this and that, right? There were people that were complaining that it wasn't as good of a turnout as they expected. It's like, if the Packers didn't exist, you wouldn't have had the turnout you had. What are we talking about, right? And again, I didn't meet an individual business owner that complained about it. I heard other people on other podcasts talking about it, though. So that's how it got brought to my attention. Like, hold up. Why are people complaining? Because you got extra business at an event like that. It just kind of blew me away. Let's see here. Packer Doug, but the loss of the Packers will be crushing. I mean, think about what would happen to the city of Green Bay. I mean, they would go on. It's not like it would become a deserted town or anything, but it's what you're known for, It's what it is. Let's see here what else we got. Packer Doug, agree, Clay. Just bought myself a new hat from the pro shop. They actually have a flash 25% off sale going on today. See, I hope Mandy ain't watching. There'll be all kinds of stuff in the cart. You married the right lady when you're constantly having to tell her, hey, look, no, we don't need to buy anything else Packers right now. We're good. She is a sucker for the pro shop. No doubt about it. Let's see what Soder says. The great lie is the private equity is an investment opportunity for owners. That money is not going back into the team. It's a chance for asset-rich and cash-poor owners to get walking around cash. I think I agree with that, Soder. It's a fascinating thing that's creeping into sports, man. College football is a wild, wild west right now. If you guys are a college football fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like down here in Tennessee, not to get too far off the beaten path here, but this definitely ties the business of college football is as much like the business of NFL football as it's ever been. We just signed a huge recruit down here. I'm a UT season ticket holder for the Tennessee Vols. They just signed a huge recruit, David Gabriel George, right? He was the number 2 running back in the country, number 9 prospect overall, plays at Baylor School down in Chattanooga, just down the road. He's originally from Canada and came down his sophomore year to play for Baylor. He's a beast. If you guys have not seen it, just YouTube his highlights. He's unbelievable, phenomenal talent, right? Great kid, great family, good head on his shoulders. Just seems like everything you want in a football player. So the rumor is he's getting paid $2 million per year. So it's a 3-year deal for $6 million if he stays the 3 years, right? Well, Ohio State was after him. The rumor there was they offered him $1.2 million. But the other thing that's getting fascinating is where's that money coming from? The university's paying him that? No, they're not. You've got collectives, you've got groups and investors and things like that want to support the program. But Adidas just signed a huge deal with the University of Tennessee. And that deal is, I think, $20 to $25 million per year. Well, where's that money go? How's it utilized? So that means the Vols will wear Adidas gear now, right? That's what they're going to wear from here on out. Well, for the foreseeable future, they're switching from Nike. So they went to David Gabriel George and said, hey, we'd like to sign you to a deal. Guess where that $6 million came from? It came from Adidas. So he's an Adidas athlete. He's getting a sponsorship. Now, how did he get that linked up? Because Adidas is UT is an Adidas school. Just so happens another thing that fell into play here was, and there's several players on the team that came from the same high school down there in Chat. And like Gabriel Senda and Theodore, and there's several other players, right? Newsflash too, by the way, Peyton Manning's son is actually the backup quarterback down there. He's a freshman this year in high school. He moved the family from Colorado so his son could go to Baylor. So get ready. In 4 years, you're going to hear Peyton's son's going to be signing with UT. I just about guarantee it. With all that being said, Baylor is now an Adidas school. They signed a deal, right? That's how business works. That's how business operates. Now, why did Ohio State why did they only offer $1.2 million? Why did they not get David Gabriel George? They're a Nike school. Well, it's not that DDG is just all he's interested in is Adidas. The rumors were Ohio State went to Nike and said, hey, can you get in on this deal so we can outbid Tennessee? And Nike said, we don't invest in high school athletes. So Adidas was willing to pony up the money, and they ended up getting the prospect for the University of Tennessee as opposed to Nike, who wasn't willing to they'll pony up money, but they want more established players, right? So with all that being said, it kind of goes hand in hand with the conversation we're having, because college football is now professional football. It's essentially what it is. So let's see what Dave C says in the chat. Says, see, I fully admit that they took advantage of me for the stock. I have a $200 piece of paper and I love it. Amen. I mean, you see mine back here. They're my most prized possessions. When I see that, I don't think I own stock in the Packers. I think that's just a certificate showing my contribution to the team I love. That's what it is. And I love the fact that I can proudly say, hey man, I'm doing what I can to keep the team publicly owned and in good financial standing, right? As silly as that sounds over a $200 piece of paper, but it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Let's see here. The Fishy Thing says, thank you to everyone with money that supports the Packers so poor people like me can enjoy them for free. I love the honesty. Here's the thing, Fishy Things. You're a Packer fan. You're in a Packer podcast talking Packers right now. You're out there screaming, go Pack, go on social media, right? You'll buy merch when you can buy merch. You're supporting just as much as we are, man. We appreciate you, dude. You kidding me? Soder says the reality is the NFL is a private business that is fully subsidized by public money. There's a lot of truth to that, Soder. That's what cracked me up about Minnesota and how those Vikings fans and specifically Mike Florio will bash the whole stock sale. But you look at how their stadium was paid for. You basically force taxpayers to pay for the stuff that you want to get. We at least give our fans an opportunity like, hey, would you like to chip in before we go to the rest of the public and try to force them to pay, if that makes sense. So that's why I scoff and laugh at Vikings fans who try to go that route. It's hilarious. Let's see what Shadid says. Shadid says, then we need to get back to the Super Bowl, minimize the injuries and mistakes. Defense needs to tackle. O-line needs to protect. They got some sense, and coaching needs to do better. I hope all that is true this year, Shadid. I hope everybody performs at a peak level. I will say this, the whole idea of breaking down the financials and everything, the biggest thing I came away with, and maybe you guys came away with something more, a little deeper, right? A little deeper thought. I came away going, this organization's all in. The money they just shelled out for Micah Parsons, the money they shelled out for Jordan Love, everything that they've done to kind of keep this thing moving forward, it feels like an organization that's all in. The only one that wasn't all in for me was Brian Gutekunst. I kind of felt like Brian Gutekunst was clinging to having a young roster and keeping things youthful and this and that. And it's like, Bub, I don't know if you're paying attention or not, but everybody's kind of got their chips in the middle of the table here. And you're forcing Matt LaFleur to go out there and try to do something no team has ever done, and that's win a Super Bowl with the youngest roster in the league. Like, we got to adjust. We all got to give and take here. We got to adjust a little bit. What do you do this year? Bang. You got 3 veterans that weren't top tier talent. They weren't elite players that you had to break the bank for. Like, people give him credit for trading for Micah Parsons. I don't give Goody credit for trading for Micah Parsons. There's not a GM in the league that couldn't have done that deal. They couldn't have just said, oh, yep, we outbid everybody else. We gave the most draft capital. That's essentially what Goody did. It would be like 2 consumers going to a store and somebody saying, hey, I got this shirt. Who wants to buy it? And they both go, oh, I would like to get it. Cool. How much you give me? $10. I'll give you 20. You're not willing to go 10? No, I'll go 20. All right, it goes to you. Look at this hero. He paid more money for it, right? It's not a bad thing he did it. It's a great move, don't get me wrong. But I don't tip my cap for that to Goody for that move. He didn't do anything extraordinary to make that happen. He gave up more capital than anybody was willing to give up in terms of draft assets, and he's paid more money than anybody was willing to pay because obviously Micah agreed to the deal. With all that being said, it's not a negative on Goody, but I definitely don't look at it like that's a huge positive. Now, the other aspects of the roster, the fact that you were willing to go out and add Javon Hargrave, he's automatically your best defensive tackle in that room, in my opinion. You had Benjamin St. Juste, who was the highest graded zone cornerback in the league last year. You got him for pennies on a dollar. Great shopping by Goody. Tip your cap there. And then, of course, you went and traded a 7th-round pick for Zaire Franklin, who I think could be an upgrade over Quay Walker for much cheaper as well. So you added 3 pieces. In the past, Goody wouldn't have done that. Goody would have been going, these young guys need to play. These young guys need to play. So it does feel like Goody has shifted and kind of push the chips all in. So, with all that being said, it's going to be fun to see if it all pays off this year. And this is year 2 of a 3-year window that might extend into a 5-year window if they really go on a run here. Because what's going to happen is if this works this year, and let's say the Packers get over the hump and they get to the Super Bowl or win it, what you're probably going to see next year, we're going to push all the chips in. They're going to go, all right, guys, we're going all in to try to repeat. And if it don't work, we may have to back up, reset, and it'll be like Jordan Love's first year starting. You're scraping by a young roster again, build the roster back up, reset the roster, and go on another run. But I think there's a legit shot that if the Packers get over the hump, we could go all in and really kind of double down and try to win multiple championships here. I think that's where they're at, in my opinion, right now. So, Packer Doug says many states are allowing high school athletes to get NIL money. Crazy times. And, as long as their parents are okay with it, Packer Doug, I don't have a problem with it. I have a problem with government and other human beings telling other human beings they're not allowed to make money. That just makes no sense to me. Like, that's like with the collegiate athletes. I would love for college football to be like it always was when I was growing up. But the reality is those players were getting paid too. They were just getting paid illegally, right? And the other thing was, the people that were trying to play honest and not take money because the rules said you wasn't allowed to do it, they were getting penalized when they get caught while other people were getting away with it. In the meantime, college athletes shouldn't get paid. Okay, cool. Then why the hell is the college coach making $12 million per year? Shout out Nick Saban. How are you going on any kind of broadcast? I love Coach Saban. I think he's the greatest coach in college football history. But how in the world are you going on national television saying, oh man, this is all screwed up. These players, there's no structure in place, this and that. Why didn't you say that when they offered you $12 million per, bub? You got quiet. You got real quiet when they were throwing you a checkbook, right? But the players aren't allowed to benefit from it. I have a problem with that. I really do. Same thing with the athletic directors. Same thing with the university presidents. Everybody was making money off college football hand over fist, except for the players that were on the field. I have a problem with that. So, but you know me though, I love business. So, Jay Lewis in the chat says, or Lewis, I apologize, win a Super Bowl and you can create extra revenue. Amen to that. Packer Doug says, I was amazed the Packers' local revenue increased over last year, even though they had one less home game. Right. And it just kind of shows you, man. And again, Packer Doug, what do we all complain about, myself included? Where's the game this week? Okay, this week it's on Fox. All right, got it. I'll just use my TV. Well, next week it's on Amazon on Thursday night. I got to make sure I got a Prime membership. Oh, Christmas Day, it's going to be on Netflix. Well, we got to have a Netflix membership. Well, this one's exclusively on Peacock, so it's not on NBC on TV, but it's on Peacock. We all complain about those things, right? But at the end of the day, we're talking about this extra revenue. That's where it's coming from, right? So it's does kind of feel like a necessary evil. Gone are the days of you get 1 or 2 games on local TV and then we'll catch SportsCenter and not see who did what, right? But I don't know if that's good or bad, to be honest with you. So Chris Casuin says exactly, Clayton on Goop. Appreciate it, buddy. And again, I don't mean to come across like I'm down on Goody. I think Goody is a very good to great GM. I believe that because we're consistently in the hunt. I just can't put him in that elite status up there with your John Schneiders and your Howie Rosemans and whatnot. Can't do it, man. And it was at Veach, I believe it is, out there in Kansas City. You got to, everybody says, well, LaFleur needs to win a championship. Goody needs to win a championship. Like, it's amazing how nobody talks about that. Well, he's building a good roster. He's building a good roster, but he's asking the coach to do something that nobody's ever done. Win with the youngest roster in the league. That changes this year. So I'm excited to not have to complain about that anymore, man. I got so fired up. Watch us still end up being the youngest team somehow. It's going to piss me off, but I'm pretty sure we'll at least be, 4 or 5 spots from the youngest, I would imagine. So, yeah, Soder said the extension was the thing with Parsons. Yep, absolutely. And again, we just basically were willing to pay more than anybody else. That's what it was. Let's see here. Dennis in the chat. Good to see you, buddy. He says, with Jordan Love being 28 years old, I think 5 years is legit. I do too, in terms of Jordan. I think Jordan will be good into his probably 33 to 35 is when I would expect a decline based on how he plays the game. He doesn't utilize his legs a whole lot, right? He's definitely more of a pocket passer than he is a scrambler, but he can make things happen on the run, no doubt. With that being said, the whether it's a 3-year window or a 5-year window for me is the cap. All this stuff it's going to pile up eventually. Now the cap's going to continue to go up, but I kind of project that not this year, obviously, not next year, but the year after that is when you're going to have to make some tough decisions. You're going to have to back up a little bit and reset. But if you hit on your draft picks, you just rotate those guys. Let me give you an example. Xavier McKinney, right? Xavier McKinney is a phenomenal safety, one of the best in the league, one of my favorite players on the roster. In a year or two, you got to make a decision. Do we keep Xavier McKinney? Well, you can't afford to let him go. Well, what if Evan Williams takes another step and you go, oh, wow, he's just as good as McKinney declining because he's still ascending? Then you extend Evan Williams and you remove Xavier McKinney off the books. That's how you balance the budget, right? But if you decide Evan Williams is a dog, we're paying him. We're also going to give Xavier McKinney another extension. We're going to pay him. You can't pay everybody on your roster, right? Some people think the salary cap is fake. Others think it's so in tune with our everyday financial lives that, oh my God, how are we going to make this work? As always, the truth usually lies somewhere in the middle. The cap is very real from a calendar standpoint. If you plan ahead, you can maneuver the cap and accomplish just about anything you want to in terms of having the players on your roster that you got. The issue is modeling that roster out. What's most important? Edge, D tackle, edge and 3-tech, top priorities on defense, in my opinion. On offense, quarterback, left tackle. You'll pay top money. You'll overpay for great. You never overpay for good. And those positions are the positions that you want to be the most aggressive in making sure that you shore up. Then after that, I think it's on offense, it's center is next in line. And on defense, it's Mike backer and it's post safety, right? So you always want to make sure that you got your best football players are in those positions. I think you're going to have a consistent chance to win a lot of ball games. And why do I say that? Think of the Packers teams that have won in the past, right? What did they have really good in 1996? You had a franchise quarterback in Brett Favre, right? And you had Reggie White on the defensive line. Those are the two main pieces, right? Then you go to tier 2. Well, who was the good safety? Leroy Butler, right? Now, let's go to 2010, the 2010 Packers. Who was your quarterback? Aaron Rodgers, right? Your left tackle. I'm trying to think of who was the left tackle that year. I can't remember if Bulaga played left tackle that year, if it was Clifton was still on the team. It's been so long ago. Sucks that it's been that long. Regardless, quarterback, you had Aaron Rodgers. D tackle, you had B.J. Raji. Edge defender, you had Clay Matthews. Stack backer, you had A.J. Hawk. I think one of the most underrated Packer players in the history of Green Bay. Post safety, who'd you have? Nick Collins. I mean, you had the key positions just filled in. And you had some bonus pieces too with Charles Woodson playing star, slot, and outside in your base, right? You had obviously great wide receiver core, solid wide receiver core there too. But the main pieces were in place that just screamed, yeah, they can go on a run here and win the whole thing. So, yeah. Let's see what else we got in here. Let's hit one more and then we'll get out. I'm over on time. Appreciate y'all hanging out. Do me a big favor. Smash that like button real quick. I'm going to hit just a couple more here. Jay Lewis says, Clay, can we see a path where Packer games leave local access and join the streaming mob, especially for primetime matchups? I could be wrong here, but I feel like Green Bay has done a good job of giving you guys, if you live locally in Green Bay, of kind of keeping you guys from having to overpay for extra streaming services. I've heard things in the past like, well, down here in Tennessee, I have to pay for this extra streaming service, but if you're in the city of Green Bay, you've got access to it, right? I don't know all the details there, so I probably shouldn't even answer the question. If it comes to each team having their own streaming service, though, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I kind of like the Packers' chances there. What do I mean by that? Now, the national revenue that the Packers get from the Giants market, the Jets market, and all that we all share is huge for Green Bay. Don't take this the wrong way. But I mean, I got people that watch the show in Japan. I got people that watch the show in France. I know that because they email me. They reach out all the time. We got people in Brazil. We've got people in Australia. We've got all over the world. If every team backed up and they said, all right, guys, you're all in charge of your own streaming service, okay? And your fans will pay for your streaming service to watch your team. I kind of think the Green Bay Packers would be top 5 in that. Now, the problem is there's going to be other avenues that the Packers don't have access to in larger markets and businesses and sponsorships and advertising for these large cities like New York, like New Jersey, Chicago, Dallas, LA, all these places, right? The Packers wouldn't have access to that. And that's where you would get buried. So, again, I always tell people I like to root against the Giants, but thank God for the New York Giants. If you're going, what do you mean by that? The Mara family could have just taken all that money, scooped it up, and said, this is ours, nobody's getting any. But early in the process, way back when Green Bay was struggling to exist, they said, you know what? Let's all share the revenue. Let's put it all into one pot and make the league stronger. If the Mara family hadn't done that, who knows what the structure would be right now. So, it would be very, very, very tough. So, all right. I think that's it, guys. We're going to get out of here. Thank y'all for hanging out. Man, we had a bunch of people jump in. Appreciate y'all making us part of your morning. I wanted to do a 15-minute stream and just kind of lay out the financials, but obviously y'all turned this into a great conversation. So greatly appreciate y'all hanging out. Do me a favor, hit that like button on the way out. We'll probably go live a little later this evening for PTA. I'm going to get with Jacob, see if we want to hop in here and talk some more ball. But if not, we will see you on the next episode. Do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe, click the bell icon, and y'all get ready for training camp, man. It's going to be a blast. I cannot wait for Wednesday's show. Going to wake up, grab a cup of coffee. We're going to pop Twitter up on the screen, and we're going to have a live watch party, if you will, of Packers training camp practice. It's going to be open to the public. It's just going to be absolutely phenomenal. So appreciate everybody hanging out with us, man. We'll be back later this afternoon. My name's Clayton. This is PTA. Go Pack, go.
There we go.
Bye, guys.